Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast will contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, please check out our channel Reviews Without Remorse on YouTube and VidMe. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show.
3 things sell Reviews Without Remorse: tragedy, sex, and Superman. And we can't write worth a damn about sex. My name is David, and I'm David. And with me is the man with the bulletproof eyeball, Joe.
What's going on, partner?
Oh, so much and so little, and we'll get to all of that because this is episode 92. And in this show, we will discuss Once Upon a Deadpool. The PG-13 version of Deadpool gets a trailer. Princess Bride and Butch Cassidy screenwriter William Goldman has died, and we celebrate his accomplishments. And then, sit back and stare in puzzlement as Reviews Without Remorse concludes the Superman series with Superman Returns. I think puzzlement is an accurate way of describing it.
I would say so.
Yeah. I guess we should just get right to it, shouldn't we?
Right before Christmas, A Good Guy in Red is coming to theaters with his new sidekick, Fred.
Why am I here?
You're in a PG-13 version of Deadpool, filtered through the prism of childlike innocence.
I'm a grown
And nobody
man.
does childlike innocence like you, Fred. Nobody. I need you almost as much as you need me.
I don't need you at
You
all.
need me to untie you once we're done.
Oh boy, what a Christmas present from Mr. Deadpool.
I just saw the trailer and I already I'm cracking up. I'm like, gee, am I an easy lay when it comes to this stuff? Because honestly, like anytime he even opens his mouth, I'm like laughing and everything. Like I just fall for every single joke. Like it was hysterical.
The man is the man. What do you expect? He is just, when you throw your heart and soul into something, you believe in it and you understand it, you can't really go wrong. The guy gets this character and he knows what it takes to make it work. And seeing Fred Savage just like viciously be like, yeah, I like the Marvel movies. Oh, the real Marvel movies. Just in the trailer. I mean, I was sold on this to begin with, but god darn it, that just was so fun and funny. And they showed like one scene from the entire Daredevil 2 movie. Like one scene where he just bops, Negasonic Teenage Warhead's nose. That's it. Everything else was new shit.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it was great. Watch it. I mean, the stuff with him and Fred Savage. It's funny because I like the idea that it's going to be. I'm sort of torn again. I really wish they did this with the first one, but now it is what it is. I feel like I want to take my nieces and nephews now to go see it. But they're gonna be like, "What happened in the first one?" And I'm like, But either way, I mean, I love the idea. It was executed hysterical. I don't even know if they'll even get any of it too, though.
Who knows? Who cares, man? This is just. It's gonna be fun. I know my kid is dying. He saw the trailer this morning. He was just giggling his head off, and he said, "I can't wait."
Yeah.
I can't wait either, Liam. But when we first talked about Deadpool, we said, "Oh God, a PG-13 version of this movie would destroy the entire intent," and blah 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 blah. And gosh darn it, man, they made a believer out of me. Let this be proof, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not always right, and I will admit when I'm wrong. This trailer is 100% proof that in this case I was wrong.
We haven't seen it yet, so we don't know. But from what I see, I agree with you 100%.
Ready?
No, we'll jump.
Like hell we will.
No, it'll be okay. If the water's deep enough, we don't get squished to death. They'll never follow us.
How do you know?
Would you make a jump like that and you didn't have to?
I have to, and I'm not gonna.
Well, we got to, otherwise we're dead. They're just gonna have to go back down the same way they come. Come on.
Just one clear shot, that's all I want.
Come on. We got to.
Up. Get away from me.
Why?
I want to fight him.
They'll kill us.
Maybe.
You want to die?
Do you?
All right. I'll jump first.
No.
Then you jump first.
No, I said.
What's the matter with you?
I can't swim!
Why, are you crazy? The fall will probably kill you.
Okay, so Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Papillon, The Stepford Wives, The Great Waldo Pepper, All the President's Men, Marathon Man, Heat, The Princess Bride. That was all William Goldman, man. Chaplin, Dreamcatcher, Hearts in Atlantis, The General's Daughter. This, you can't possibly sum up this man any more succinctly. His first screenplay was based on the novel Soldier in the Rain back in 1963, and then he just started working in Hollywood. And his biggest hit probably would be, his first big hit was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, a classic, incredible movie written by the now late William Goldman, who died November the 16th, 2018, at the age of 87 in New York, where he lived his entire life. The influence this man has, I can't even comprehend. The man basically helped create the political thriller. He helped redefine the Western. He is the reason why Fred Savage is tied to that bed in Deadpool.
I was thinking the same thing. What a way to tie into.
I know it's a horrible parallel, but it's just there. It is. 87. I can't think of a movie of his I didn't really like. Heck, I even liked Maverick.
Yeah, that's the thing. Honestly, the thing you have to say about his films is that he's got so many that are honestly very iconic. All the President's Men, The Princess Bride has been a classic that people, adore. And the great thing about it is that you can't look at that and say that he does any cookie cutter kind of stuff. Everything is very original.
Yeah.
He doesn't stick to a certain genre. He doesn't stick to a certain formula. I mean, everything was, very, very unique, and every one is a classic in its own way.
Yeah, he hasn't really worked much in the latter years. His last full screenplay was the screenplay for Dreamcatcher. He's written some novels. He's written books on writing and everything like that, talking about his career in Hollywood. From what I understand, it's very open and candid. But he did. He crossed so many genres. He managed to breathe life into his stories. And I mean, you could say that some of them were the directors, because Alan J. Pakula for All the President's Men, Rob Reiner for The Princess Bride, sure, but it all started with him, and there's more of a commonality in the way his stories were told than there were with directors. It's not just the directors; it's him, and he just breathed life and personality into anything that he wrote.
Mm. I think he made directors' jobs very easy, frankly.
Yeah. Absolutely made it very easy. And, I don't have much more else to say about it. I mean, it's been a rough couple of weeks of losing heroes. I mean, we didn't even cover Douglas Rain, who died last week, who was the voice of Hal. That's basically it. That's all he was known for, as the voice of Hal.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we lost him, we lost Stan, now we lost William Goldman. No offense, Doug, but Stan and William kind of just a tad above you, sir. No offense.
Agreed.
But hail and farewell, Mr. Goldman. Thank you so much for, being a screenwriting legend. Screenwriters, he started in Hollywood when screenwriters was like a bad word. Nobody gave a crap about the screenwriter. And it's nice that we now live in a time where screenwriters get a little more due than they used to.
Agreed. I'm definitely going to watch one of his films this week in remembrance.
You've been gone a long time. Where did you go?
You have great power. Even though you've been raised as a human being, you are not one of them.
It's not easy for me to live my life being who I am, keeping secrets.
Superman reappears after a long absence, but is challenged by an old foe who uses Kryptonian technology for world domination. Written by Michael Dougherty and Dan Harris, story by Bryan Singer, Michael Dougherty, and Dan Harris, based on characters created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, directed by Bryan Singer. Let's cap it. Superman Returns.
You know, we didn't have a whole lot of news this week, and honestly, I don't mind, because this is one of those films that I guarantee we can talk about it for an hour and still not have covered everything that we want to talk about. Because there are so many, not to telegraph, but just so many little things in this film that I feel like are worth mentioning and worth discussing. But we'll cross that bridge. Another thing I kind of want to mention, by the way, there's a part of me that was wondering if we should have put Supergirl in this mix.
I would have wanted to murder you.
Yeah, that might have been good. That might have been taking it just a little far, but anyway.
Yeah, if Christopher Reeve had shown up in Supergirl, I might have thought about it, but because the thing is the reason why we're including this movie is it is technically a sequel to the Christopher Reeve movies.
Yes.
So it is part of that canon, or at least it's meant to be part of that canon. There's a story. There's a documentary out there called The Death of Superman Lives. Now, what that movie is about, after this, I don't know if it was after this or before this, I'm not 100% sure of the timeline on this, but for a while there, they were going to make a movie version of the Death of Superman storyline that was big in comic books. And it was going to star Nicolas Cage and was supposed to be directed by Tim Burton. Kevin Smith tells a wonderful story about his dealings with John Peters with regards to trying to get that movie set up and everything like that. That's something else.
Yeah.
You can look that up somewhere. But now the movie didn't go through. And if you ever want to see a fascinating story about that, see the movie The Death of Superman Lives. Stan Lee is also in it, believe it or not, and so is Kevin Smith. And a lot of people talk about where that movie would have gone, etc. Now, part of that movie is a very infamous Polaroid picture of a test shot of Nicolas Cage in a Superman costume. Now, the story goes is that while they were making Superman Returns, Bryan Singer would pull out that picture of Nick Cage in that Superman test costume and use that as leverage against anybody who gave him suggestions and said, we're not making this movie, we're making a Superman movie. That is the legend of how he got to do what he wanted with this movie. Mr. Singer, you maybe should have taken some notes.
Yeah. This is, go ahead.
I watched this, this movie was aboundingly frustrating to me because there were tiny little moments that I thought to myself, well, this could work, and then they would derail it. And then, oh, okay, this might work, and then they would derail that. And I was like, what the hell is wrong here? Could you just not make a decision? There were moments that looked, the cinematography I thought was pretty and was nice. I thought Brandon Roth did a halfway decent job of aping Christopher Reeve. I thought he was personable and charming and not too nerdy as Clark Kent or anything like that. And yet commanding as Superman, but then they completely kneecap any of those accomplishments by introducing us to Stalker Superman.
Yeah. Yes. You know what? I'm gonna kind of. I don't know. Maybe we're saying the same thing two different ways, or maybe I'm gonna disagree with you.
There's so much about this movie to discuss that it's possible we are on the same page. We just don't know where to start.
Right. When you said that there were things about this movie you thought could have worked, but it kind of. I don't know if I ever really felt that way. I sort of felt like at every turn, the choices that they make are really odd. But what I did sense was that this was sort of Bryan Singer's list of what ifs, all those little Superman what ifs kind of thing that we wanted to kind of bring to the table. And what would happen if this? What would happen if that? And I kind of find at every turn, while it wants to be a love letter to the Donner Superman, and while it does act as one of those kind of soft reboots where it's half sequel, half remake. I mean, it when you watch this and you see there are so many beats from the original that it has almost that Force Awakens feel to it, where they're remaking the original and trying to put it off as a sequel. But yeah, I felt like there were so many things that happened here. Again, Bryan Singer's kind of like his modern look at Superman, almost in a way that I think the other Supermans, the Man of Steel and the Justice League and Batman v Superman, all struggling with this modern take on Superman. Well, whereas Zack Snyder just goes in this just Looney Tunes dark direction, Snyder is kind of doing like a much more mild look at a darker, modern, realistic, quote unquote Superman. What if Superman was a deadbeat dad? What if Superman was this creepy stalker? What if things like that? And again, I kind of feel like that. It's like we always say, where they learn the wrong lessons. And again, Singer, on one hand, while he's trying to tribute Donner Superman, he took things from it that I didn't see, and took it in a direction that I would not have guessed. Again, like a Superman who makes poor decisions. Mm-hmm. And it's odd because again, if you're gonna make this we might as well just start out with the elephant in the room. The stalker X-ray vision, super hearing, creeping in on Lois's conversations. That to me almost seems like it's almost like, if I had to guess, I would say he's trying to come up with an arc. Well, this isn't the Superman we know. This is immature Superman who doesn't know yet that it's not nice to listen in on conversations, and it's a little creepy to kind of like he's now got this he's challenged by this other guy who his girl is dating. So he there's this kind of little level of immaturity when it comes to how he deals with him. Not so bad. I mean, they do. At every moment, like when he rescues Richard. Richard is Lois's new boyfriend, the stepfather, pseudo foster father of his son. He at every turn when he deals with him right. It's not like he's ever doing something wrong. But you sense this competition, which again, when you're talking about Superman, it feels weird. It feels weird that he's now is well, maybe I shouldn't say he's two rooster fighting with another guy. You know what I mean? Having a size off competition with this other guy, and again, for a Superman movie, it just feels so immature, and that's sort of the tone that goes with this movie.
Yeah, what was worse about that, too, was that it was one-sided. Like, Richard wasn't a bad guy, and was
Right.
honestly just trying to do the best he can. And he wasn't he had one moment in the entire movie where he had a moment of a pang of jealousy. That's when her password was Superman. He had that one moment. But the rest of the time, it's not like he was aloof to the idea that she had a thing for him.
I wouldn't agree with that, but go on.
I don't think he really. It wasn't.
There was the whole scene where he asked her about the article. I spent the night with Superman, and she's like, "Oh, come on, Richard. Everybody loves Superman."
Well, but you know what? Here's the difference. James Marsden played the part of Richard Wright.
Yeah.
Richard Wright, and he played it. I felt perfect.
Agreed.
They took the stereotype. The stereotype is, oh, there's the new guy with my girl, and you would think that they would do the thing where he would be this giant dick and be like the entire audience be against him, but they went the one route. The one thing I appreciate about this movie is they didn't make him out to be a dick.
Agreed.
They made him out to be a caring person. He really was looking out for the best interest. He obviously loved her. He obviously loved Jason. He just is the only thing standing in the way of Superman being with Lois Lane.
And I agree with that 1,000%. You're 100% correct. And for those reasons, it makes Superman come off as weird.
That's what I mean.
Right. I mean, he's a good. They do. First of all, I think it's funny that this poor guy keeps playing those parts, like whether it's Cyclops having to deal with Wolverine or this guy now dealing with Superman,
or from if you want to get crazy, Westworld as well.
Yes,
he's always like the second run guy.
Yeah, totally. The nice guy he's the quintessential nice guy who finishes last.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, so yeah, it's because he's such a good guy, and like I said, it makes Superman look weird, but that's sort of the thing I'm getting at, is where Bryan Singer seems to want to introduce issues for Superman to deal with, and again, he does it in a realistic way, where it's not wrong. Like, I mean, this is a legit possible thing that could confront Superman if he left and came back 5 years later. But again, does this belong in a Superman movie? Is this what we want from a Superman movie? And I think the answer is wholeheartedly no. I really don't feel like watching Superman, who's supposed to be larger than life, who's supposed to do the right thing, get into a cockfight, with Lois's new boyfriend, and now find that he was... I mean, seriously, think of the implications of him having a son. Is he knocked up Lois and left? He might not have known it, but that's still what happened. And now he comes home 5 years later, a baby daddy, to a woman who's now with another guy. And again, it's not that it's wrong, and these are the sort of arguments people have, like the online arguments about this movie. I'm not saying it's wrong. It's just an awkward story. It's an awkward story to do. I mean, of all the things you can do with Superman, why this? Why does Bryan Singer say, I want Superman to be an absentee father or and jealous of this other guy? I mean, it's weird. And again, the actors in this, I'm not crazy about the casting because, and I'm not faulting anybody, but the casting to me gets weird because these actors look so much younger to me that it almost seems plausible that this incarnation of Superman would be doing these things. That's sort of what I'm saying about the arc. That if this is a sequel to the original Donners, doesn't make a lot of sense because this feels like young Superman who has to deal with feelings of jealousy and silliness, high school stuff, and kind of have to learn to overcome it, I guess. But this is not the Superman that I know from the original films.
Well, let's start with that conceit. You're absolutely 100% correct in that entire... I won't call it a diatribe because that almost makes it sound negative, but
tirade
man,
works.
That was a tirade, rant, whatever it was, man, that was pretty on point. The first conceit of this movie is Superman went off to check out the remains of Krypton. Why?
Right.
Nobody can explain this to me. Why? What did he expect to find 20 years later? And 20 his years. At that distance, we have no idea what time really is. Time at a distance goes differently in space, man. Let's say let's say conservatively, it's been 20 years since Krypton exploded, which we know it's not, because here's another little bit of anachronism. They sure did want to show that close-up of the kryptonite from Addis Ababa in 1978.
Yeah.
And this movie came out in 2006. Let's do the math. 88, 98, 2000. So he's like 30. He's supposed to be 30 years old. Okay, that kind of works out. So 30 years later, he gets a signal. Oh my goodness, we found where Krypton is. Where the hell are you going? Why are you? What do you expect to find?
Yeah.
You know, if he had come back, if he had landed and he said this was all I could find, and he pulled out the shrunken city of Kandar, I would have said, okay, I'll let that slide. But they didn't even give him that.
No.
They didn't even give him the frickin' city of Kandar, which would have made at least a little bit of sense.
Yeah. Right. It does. I mean, and they purposely reenact the explosion of Krypton in the beginning, blown up into just gravel, tiny little fragments that fly past the camera. So it's like, well, what could be left of that? And like you said, what would be worth 5 years of your life of traveling, sitting in by yourself? And again, I don't know. Superman is in a spaceship. Where does he get the spaceship? Why does he need a spaceship? Are we implying that once he leaves Earth, he has zero? Is he pulling a nuclear man? And once he's out of the sun, he has no power, so he needed the spaceship. And when he comes, he crash lands into his own backyard, just like the original. Why is that? Why is he like staggering out half dead when he comes out of the spaceship? Just again, a lot of things that just already don't make sense. And seriously, this film really does kind of remind me of The Force Awakens now in a lot of ways. Where The Force Awakens setup doesn't make a lot of sense. It's a remake of the original, sort of, kind of, but in a new way, with and trying to recapture the same magic with mixed results.
Right.
Yeah, so you're right. I mean, the whole doesn't make a whole lot of heap of sense, the whole beginning of it. And seriously, again, Lois's problem, why couldn't he at least say goodbye? I find that to be extremely reasonable. Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, when she's saying...
You couldn't say nothing? Anything?
Yeah. I mean, here's Clark. And again, what? Well, she goes to Clark to complain. Why? I don't know. And he says, "Well, baby,
the relationship between Lois and Clark seems much more hostile,
right?
As opposed to the original.
It kind of does. Yeah, it really does. And right, and he says, "Well, she goes, he couldn't even say goodbye," and he goes, "Well, maybe he didn't know how to say goodbye." And she's like, "How about this? Goodbye." And I'm sitting there agreeing with her 1,000%. Yeah, why not?
She's got a point.
Really, this came up. I'm going to do this. I will be back. Instead of just literally slipping out the back door and not saying anything. So again, that's why, like I said, you're dealing with a very immature Superman in this.
And yet we're supposed to buy. I mean, where in the timeline does this take place? Is this supposed to be after Superman 2? A part of me feels like this is supposed to be after Superman 2, implying that the sex scene that happened in Superman 2 is what made her pregnant.
Yes. In fact, I remember reading all the time that it takes place after Superman 2, forgetting all about 3 and 4. And I remember watching this movie and thinking, why do you need to clarify that 3 and 4 is not a thing? And then it finally dawned on me, because then the kid would have had the kid in Superman 3 or by Superman 3.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So that's why they had to retcon this, and I was like, oh. So you're deleting those two films from the storyline so you can write a story about Superman having a kid with Lois Lane. Mm. Yeah, again, all the things you can write about in Superman, that's where Bryan Singer wants to go. And again, it's almost like a window into Bryan Singer's childhood. The fact that these are the things he wants to write about, I don't quite get it.
Well, let's talk about the other thing that I don't quite get. This kid shouldn't have powers. Superman didn't have powers when he was intimate with Lois Lane. If they're really following 1 and 2, he lost his powers. He's only part Kryptonian in whatever. He's supposed to be completely human when they fool around. How does this kid have powers?
There's a what if and why. I don't know. I don't know how the the chamber works when they made Superman to a regular mortal. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I'm baffled. I have nothing for that.
That particular plot point makes no sense. You were almost better served by saying that this is a sequel to Superman 1. And this way you could have just had blanks between Superman 1 and when this particular thing takes place. You know, where at some point him and Superman hook up. You didn't need to have 2. The minute you invoked 2 into this, you brought in additional problems into an already problematic storyline.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Well, look, I mean, Superman gets his powers back in Superman 2, and we don't quite know how. So maybe the whole point was they strip him down of his powers and, you know, rob him of the whatever he absorbed from the yellow sun of Earth. And maybe all you do is just let it undo that, and he just gets his powers back naturally or something. So maybe he's still got the Kryptonian blood in the kid. So maybe, I don't know. And frankly, you know, and the way they handle that, I find to be so strange. This idea that this kid, did you take your inhaler? Did you take your medicine? Did you take your prednisone? Did you take this and the other thing? Yes, mom. Yes, mom. And he's sucking on the asthma inhalers throughout the whole movie. And then suddenly something happens and the spark, he throws the piano. Okay. Reveal, or at least, I mean, they alluded to it a while before that. So, okay, that is Superman's son. We get it. And then after that, when they're trapped in the thing, and she says, "Can you get the door open?" He's like, "Sorry, Ma." And I'm kind of going, well, why is that? Why is he riddled with illness if he is Superman and has Superman powers? Why can't he open the door if he just threw the piano across the room? It's like alluding to something, and I'm not really getting my head around what that is.
Here's another thing that I wonder. Does she know that this is Superman's kid?
Does she know it's Superman's kid?
Yes. Does she know it's Superman's kid?
Well, she has to.
Because again, let's go back to this is based after Superman 2, and he kissed her, and she forgot all about everything that happened, including the fact that they boffed in Superman 2. Basically, this kid is like an immaculate conception to Lois Lane. By her own memory. And since this movie is big on Jesus metaphor, you know that's what he's going for.
Oof. Yeah, the famous roofie kiss of Superman 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird too. but she has, well, I don't know. I really don't know. It's weird because, again, I mean, let's assume that Lois didn't start sleeping with Richard in the weeks after Superman left. And I guess you have to also assume, by the way, that Superman left in the weeks following the romance with Lois Lane. Like, that just happened, and he just took off.
Right.
And, again, why is she so annoyed? If she doesn't remember anything from the first... whatever.
But that's exactly.
Yeah.
There's so much in the way the slavish devotion and love of those first 2 Superman movies is its own weakness. Because it relies too much on that, but doesn't remember how it's undercutting it by being hung on to it. Or something. It makes sense in my head.
No, I get what you're saying. Listen, I have always sort of had this funny feeling that the only reason Bryan Singer tried to do this as a sequel to the originals is for no other reason than he desperately wanted to use the theme music. And felt that he couldn't unless he was keeping it in that universe. And honestly, I say to myself, why don't we just all agree that that's the theme of Superman? Almost like when you recast James Bond, you stick with the same music. You know what I mean? Let's just call that the Superman theme and do a different Superman movie.
Right.
Because like you said, to slavishly try to stay in that... But again, they really don't. They do and they don't. They make him kind of like they love the fact that he looks kind of like Christopher Reeve. Okay, but the costume is weird, very weird. I like my costume radar is going off with this movie. Don't like it. Lois doesn't feel like Lois. Jimmy seems so out of the comics at this point. He looks more like Tintin than he looks like Jimmy Olsen. And like the retro style of Metropolis, like the retro design of the building, again, totally loses that sense of reality. You know what I mean? Like, again, the original was smart enough to use the New York Times building. Was it New York Times building or Daily News? I guess New York Times building. The New York Times building in Manhattan as the Daily Planet. They set it in Manhattan. They shot in Manhattan. Here, they designed the look of the building with the classic kind of globe on top from the comics, and this sort of like again this sort of 50s retro styling with the brownish tints and everything. Mm-hmm. So and plus they reference a lot of things. Great Caesar's ghost. The look of certain they're trying to sort of do this kind of amalgam of the Donners, of the old TV series and things that come right from the comics. I mean, they do at least twice. They do an homage to the first cover of the Superman comic when he's got the car over his head. I mean, interesting. I kind of like these little nods, but again, it makes your whole style seem weird. So it's like you're sort of going for the Donner look, but not really. You're just kind of doing a new take on Superman. So why these weird, like you said, this slavish attachment? I mean, again, there's so many beats. I mean, I feel like somebody could do a shot for shot, beat for beat, matching the first one with this one. The crash landing of the ship in Smallville doesn't make sense here, but we have to match the first one. We have a Miss Tessmacher who was going to foil Les's plan. Things like that. Just beat for. Even the kind of redo of the "Can you read my mind" sequence, by the way.
The painful one, you mean?
Ooh, I mean it's and again it's just kind of, it's not terrible, but just like there's so many like simple little mistakes that happen throughout this film. She goes to the roof. He's standing there. You really shouldn't smoke, Miss Lane. As if they never said that to each other before. Again,
or statistically speaking,
yeah.
It's still the safest way to fly.
Right. I mean, that didn't even bother me as much. It did, because it was just clumsy. And I know you want to put the line in, and now since they're in a plane, you can do it. Silly, but okay. But this one to me is worse, because again, it's almost like. It's like, imagine like you and I meet the first time and I say, hey, how about this such and such? Okay. But then 20 years later, I just say, hey, what about this? As if we never said it before. Like, we've already acknowledged, like, it's almost like he's just discovering now that she smokes and says, you really shouldn't smoke, Miss Lane. You didn't know she smokes? So, and then again, like, he takes her up. They have the conversation, which again, that I'm not crazy about, but we'll talk about that. Then he takes her back down, right? And she sort of walks off and says, well, look, you weren't here and things moved on or whatever. And then she goes downstairs, back to the office. And she's standing there with this stunned look on her face. Stunned. Looking like she just had hot sex for one thing, and this stunned look like she can't believe it just went. What? Wait. First of all, you just walked away. Calm and collected. Like you've done this a million times before. Why now do you look stunned? And then that also reminded me too, by the way, the scene when the airplane crash lands, he lowers the plane, statistically speaking, yada yada. He takes off. She's standing there. Who faints? Lois faints.
Does.
Why? Why does she faint? Everyone else in that plane should be fainting. She's the one who's been rescued by Superman a dozen times in the first movie alone. So why does she faint? Like, it's just so weird to me.
It would have been better if you had just remade the movie, Mr. Singer. Why not just remake?
If you're so committed to that, just make it again. But again, he's trying to have his cake and eat it too. He wants to homage the first one. He can't just remake it shot for shot using the same music and everything. So he has to sort of make like this sequel-ish thing, but again, he wants to do just a remake. So it doesn't work. It just feels clumsy. At every turn, you're kind of going, why is this? And this is we're sort of talking about the broad brushes. I feel like we can still get into all these details. There's so many weird things in this film that just don't make any sense to me.
I think we've managed to hit a couple of details. We've talked about how this whole reason why going didn't make sense. Does Lois even know if that's his kid? If she does, it would explain, the hostility. But then, why wouldn't she tell Superman the minute she sees him if she knows that it's his kid? Excuse me.
I can understand her not
that don't make sense.
Yeah, I will say this. I can understand her not wanting to offer that up because she's got a life with Richard. She doesn't know if she wants to complicate things. She probably does not, because again, she's got this good guy who was around, and speaking as somebody who was once the semi stepfather, you don't get a whole lot of respect in that position. So I empathize with this guy a lot. But yeah, it's just all that weird stuff. And I'll tell you what, why don't we also talk about Lex Luthor and his amazing plan for...
What a waste of a good actor.
Yeah, I tell you what, first of all, I wasn't crazy about his take. And I sympathize with Kevin Spacey because he's tasked with, again, like the rest of the film is trying to be, you're kind of recreating characters. You're sort of recreating a mood, but injecting this otherness into it, and it ends up being this kind of weird amalgam. The dialogue they give him that's supposed to be sort of akin to Gene Hackman's doesn't work.
No, there's nothing iconic that he says.
No, nothing. Like when he says something like, "Do you know the story of Prometheus?" No, of course you don't, because you're dumb. Like that, stuff like that was just so on the nose. I was like, oh, come on. But not only did I not like that, I did not like the added violence of him and his character and the goons. Like Lois Lane gets a pretty good thrashing by that goon right before he takes a piano up his face.
Right.
And then when they kick the crap out of Superman later, and he actually stabs him with the kryptonite shiv.
In my lifetime, I never thought I would ever hear the word kryptonite shiv.
Yeah, right.
But when I first saw this movie, that was the first thing that came into my head. But go on,
and
please.
It was almost like, the way we really liked Thanos, the way he had a mission and didn't take it personally. The other heroes, he actually had a lot of respect for the heroes who were fighting him.
Yes.
This is the antithesis of that, where Gene Hackman said, look, you were great in your day, Superman, but it just stands to reason. Nothing personal. But I got a mission, and you're in the way. I'm sure somebody can make the argument that, well, this Lex Luthor spent a lot of time in jail, and who knows what was going on in jail. Maybe he's more angry. Maybe it's much more a personal thing. I get it.
And I could buy that argument, but they didn't earn that.
They didn't earn it. I didn't see it. And it doesn't make the character more enjoyable. I don't like this character more because of it. And that kind of angry, again, watching them kick the shit out of Superman and stabbing him, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't make the movie better. It doesn't make the experience better. And by the way, the plan. The plan. By the way, I should also throw this out. This was actually the first time I ever wrote a full-blown movie review, by the way, was in the early days of Netflix, when Netflix was becoming a thing, when you still could have your friend list on Netflix and recommend movies to them and stuff.
I remember that.
Yeah. You could write movie reviews. And I wrote like a 3-page long thing. Then I had to cut it down because I found that you couldn't post that much, but it was still like a good page about this movie. And one of the big sticking points I had was the crystals. And that drives me up the wall. It's like, seriously, the advanced Kryptonian, and again, one of the things I said I loved about the first one was that they kept the Kryptonian technology vague enough that you couldn't pinpoint exactly how everything worked. It just did. Here, he steals crystals, okay? And again, now this crystal that originally, because it made the Fortress of Solitude, right?
Right.
I saw that and I saw, okay, it was programmed to create a hideaway for Superman.
That's how I took it myself.
I get it. Well, Bryan Singer took it and said, no, the crystals are just these non-thinking weeds that just sprout up and make bigger crystals. So, okay. That scene where he goes back to the mansion and slices off a tiny little piece and it erupts it. First of all, why do you have to go back to the mansion for that when all you need is a puddle of water, apparently? Mm-hmm. Like seriously, this thing is, to Bryan Singer, this thing is nothing more than a weed. You plop it in water and here's what happens. I didn't get that. The idea that he could still, by the way, get into the Fortress of Solitude. Hey, Superman, he's already broken into that. Put a PIN code on the front door, okay? Something. Hide the key under the mat. Anything. Keep Lex Luthor out of the Fortress of Solitude, please. But again, he walks in, starts pushing buttons. Jor-El pops up. And I know that this is partially done to remind and refresh the audience of what happened, but why would he walk in and just the recording starts playing as if he knows or he thinks it's Superman? Like, again, the way I perceived that technology, it was way different.
Technology, but can't scan a person's DNA to know that they're not Kryptonian.
Right. Seriously. I mean, the Jor-El in Man of Steel was much more interactive, could hold conversations. I mean, like, that to me was, I don't love that, but is more representative of what I thought was supposed to be implied with this one in the original Donner Superman. I never once got a sense that, I mean, seriously, what are you saying? That Jor-El could predict with certainty what questions Kal-El would ask when he arrived at the Fortress of Solitude so that his pre-recorded recording would just answer. So when Lex Luthor walks in, the recording doesn't know that it's not Superman. It just guesses what he's gonna. I don't know. It just didn't make any sense.
It could. The way I always took it was that it was a AI that is based on the soul, so to speak, of Jor-El. So, and it was coupled with a giant database of collected information. That's the way I interpreted it the first time I saw the movie.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, it's not really him. It's not like it's his soul or anything like that. It's just a representation of him, and it's an artificial intelligence, which is basically just a forward framework user interface in the form of his father, so that he would feel comfortable to ask you questions and stuff like that. The responses were not stuff that he pre-recorded. The responses just, approximated Jor-El, how he would say it, reading stuff from like a Kryptonian Wikipedia or something like that. That's how I took it. But still, you're going to put that much thought into having that much data, into having that much information out there, and you're not going to secure it to make sure that your son is the only one that can get at it is a ridiculous conceit. You have that much advanced technology, you don't have a pin?
Right. Oh, right. All that stuff just it's kind of just drove me nuts. It was so ridiculous. And yeah, I mean,
but I don't blame Singer for this. I can't. This particular thing, I understand exactly where you're upset, but I can't blame him for that. Remember, he is a student at the knee of Superman and Superman 2. And in Superman 2, it was established that it didn't have a PIN code, that he went in there and it answered his questions for him right there. That's not bad writing on this thing's part. That goes back to the other thing. I don't blame Singer for that. It still sucks. I still don't like it, but I can't blame Singer and crew here for that because it was established.
Yeah, I guess I have to agree with that. I felt like it was handled a tiny bit better in the second one. I don't know. You might be right. I might have to concede that one.
Because in the second one, he was only talking to the quote-unquote scholars. He wasn't talking to Jor-El.
Yes, right. Which I sort of more interpret it. Like seriously, the guy starts reciting the poem. That to me was, like you said, the Kryptonian Wikipedia stuff.
Yeah.
Not a full-blown conversation with Jor-El.
No, that particular level of conceit, that I will absolutely positively grant you. And honestly, everything you've said, you've not said anything wrong. You're 100% right. And dude, this is the thing about this movie. This is why I say it's frustrating, because I feel like there were a lot of people here that really went into this and really tried to make this work. And it's like, what happened? Where did it go wrong? Where did this idea of we want to do a sequel for Superman? When I first heard that that's how they were doing it, it was going to be a sequel to Superman 2, an actual sequel to go to 3 and 4. I was like, okay, this is Halloween.
Yeah,
this is the first version of Halloween to me. I explained it in the podcast a couple of weeks ago. This is what I meant by Halloween reminded me of that, because it was like, okay, we're going to do an actual sequel to Halloween. Okay, great. It's like, okay, but again, just like with Superman Returns, you held on, you honored, and I'm putting honored in quotes here as I'm saying that, you honored the original, you referenced it, you made callbacks to it, but you didn't add anything to it, and you certainly didn't respect the original enough to remember what your characters are. You took an extremely good, kind, generous person in Superman, a man who was ready to sacrifice himself, a man who you believed just would always want to do the right thing. You turned him into a slimy, stalkery mess.
Yeah.
So much so that the boyfriend of Lois Lane came off better as a match for Lois Lane than Clark Kent or Superman did. That's how badly you messed that up. You took Lois Lane, and you know what? I will give the movie one tiny bit of credit. Her investigating the blackout, I enjoyed. I liked seeing Lois Lane actually being an investigative reporter. But it was perfunctory. And all it was like very poorly point A, point B, point C, point D to get to the point where she gets captured by Lex Luthor.
Yeah, good parenting, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to take you to this place where it might be ground zero of where the blackout happened, but you just, that's great job. Some of the visual effects in it were good. Some of the visual effects in it were crap. That whole sequence, that big sequence, and mind you, this was 2006. This was one of the first movies that made a big deal about being in 3D, and they did it that the entire movie wasn't in 3D. Just the action sequences were in 3D. Mm-hmm. And the audience had to put the glasses on whenever Clark would take his glasses off. That was the conceit of this movie at the time. Now, I saw this in 3D. That entire plane sequence, even in 3D, was a jumbled mess. An incredibly jumbled mess. I couldn't tell you what ADHD kid edited that scene. Everything was just so quick, and this and that. I have no idea what the hell was going on. When Superman came down, he pushed off the shuttle, and he came down to save the plane, and he grabbed the wing. Why would you grab a falling plane at its weakest point?
Yeah.
Are you not Superman? Are you not the smart person that when Lex asked, yes, the fault, that's what causes earthquakes, and you read it off in an almost encyclopedic knowledge. You're supposed to be not only strong, but smart. And you grab the plane by, like, the weakest part of the plane.
Right.
Brilliant.
And when it snaps off, you're surprised, yeah.
Whoa, what is this? Oh, shoot, better go get the fuselage. It was harsh. There was nothing exciting about this movie. I didn't feel my heart quicken once. I felt for the Richard White character more than any other character in this movie.
Yeah.
Everybody else just felt soulless and empty. And God, even Frank Langella, for God's sakes, how does Frank Langella not come across as charming as he normally does? And that man oozes charm even when he's a dick.
Yeah, I wondered if that was, a lot of people sort of liked him in that part. I wondered if that was a bad casting choice, because I kind of felt like he is charming, but I don't think it worked here, and I can't put my finger on why. Yeah, I'm not sure. It didn't work for me.
No.
But but honestly, I want to, before we wrap up, and I know we're getting to that time.
We're getting there. Yep.
You touched on the big elephant in the room, as far as I'm concerned, too. By the way, is the action scenes. The action scenes are so boring. They're so boring for a few reasons, but primarily they just chose terrible set pieces. Like the idea of him lifting the giant continent at the end. That is something that would probably work perfect on the comic page, because you can show the epic size, the proportion of the thing he's lifting. Okay, as a still shot, that's fine. But on screen, as a cinematic piece of action, it's awful. It is awful. All it is him holding the thing over his head, and that's it. The background moves slowly past, and the music plays, but it's just him holding something over his head. That's it. Like the scene where the boat sinks, by the way, and they're trapped inside the boat, and he comes and rescues the boat. Right? Mm-hmm. Another boring shot, because all it is, you show Superman grab the rails, and then suddenly it's a shot of you're looking at Superman head on, and basically the water just sort of drains away, and nothing moves. It's like they shot it in a pool of water with him looking up, and then they
empty the pool.
Just empty the pool, and nothing moves. And it's like, doesn't anybody understand that there's no movement here? There's no, you don't have to move your eyes around to follow. There's nothing happening, and every action is like that. The shots of him flying, by the way, there isn't even a good shot of him flying around. And honestly, I kind of feel that that's partially because now, with CGI and with the modern special effects, you can get any effect you need, so it doesn't occur to anybody to make movement. Like, I used to love those shots in the Donner when they would show him taking off, right? It would be him flying towards the camera as the background would drop away from the camera. Right. Like the drop, you'd see the space happen between them simultaneously. And I used to love those shots. But here he is with his arms out. The camera's 5 feet in front of him, a little to the right, holding still with his arms out. The background is moving slowly behind him. His cape is moving. But that's it. There's no motion. There's no motion in the camera. So, I mean, that's one of the biggest things that kills me about this movie. Among the other things.
Even though you've been raised as a human being, you are not one of them.
Well, speaking of things that kill us about the movie, I mean, there is so much to discuss about this travesty, but we got to score this, man.
Yeah. Who's going first?
I'm going to leave it to you. This is your guy. This is the last Superman movie that we've got for right now.
Yeah.
So
I think we've literally now covered every single, at least modern concept, modern incarnation of Superman.
Pretty much.
Yeah. All right. So listen, I'm gonna give this one a 3. Again, it's not offensively bad, but it's almost offensively bad, and the things that it's able to accomplish with, again, the new special effects, boy, does it undercut itself with a story. Instead of an epic Superman story, you get a Superman dealing with domestic issues, petty jealousy. You get a weak Lex Luthor with a plan that doesn't make any sense in any way, shape, or form. Who wants to live on a big giant rock? I don't understand. The tone of it is wrong. The attempt to recreate the original is awkward. Again, it's kind of got that Force Awakens feel to it. The characters don't feel right. The characters seem immature. The tone from why Lois Lane is in shock in certain scenes, I don't quite get. And the action is abominable. The action is so stilted and boring. It's not one person really stopped to notice that this is not an exciting scene. And if the camera's not moving and if the people are not, there's no motion across the screen, then you got nothing. So yeah, it's amazing to me that Richard Donner's Superman gets the action so much better than this film. As opposed, I mean, again, Man of Steel fixes that mistake in spades, and now we got too much action, but for this one, it's just boring. It's boring. And again, I just can't deal with the idea of Superman as the deadbeat dad and the jealous boyfriend or jealous ex-boyfriend. Not working, and it definitely does not do that character justice. I'm gonna give it a 3.
And I'm right there with you, sir. I was teetering between a 3 and 4. I came in with a 4, and as we talked, I was like, you know what? Why am I being so nice? So I'm going down to a 3 myself. This movie had potential, and it was completely wasted. It was completely wasted by ego, by a slavish devotion to the movies that came before. It made choices that slavish devotion, you should have been able to look at your slavish devotion in those first 2 movies and said to yourself, no, these choices don't make sense. You're trying to continue a story, but you're not paying attention to that story. We pointed out like 3 things, as the show progressed, of this is the story that they told us, and then they're saying we're a sequel to that, but then they completely throw all that stuff out the window. They don't explain anything with regard to the kid in an effort to try to preserve the surprise when he tosses the piano at Clownhead guy. I couldn't feel anything for any character but Richard. He was the only one that felt like a living human being who stayed as a consistent character throughout the movie. I don't know if that's a testament to James Marsden as an actor. I don't know if that's a testament to how well written the character is. Honestly, considering how much I loved him in Westworld, I'm going to give that to Marsden. I'm going to say it's him.
I would agree with you, and I think he's a great actor, and I think he possibly a little underrated, and kind of gets pigeonholed into these kinds of roles. Yeah, first of all, if the only character you feel something for, if the only thing you feel is bad for someone, well, that's not a great movie-going experience. And
no.
Again, I do think that Singer was trying his best to introduce modern, realistic issues into this film. Again, it would have been very easy to make this guy a mustache-twirling bad guy, but he knew enough not to, and he knew enough to say, let's deal with what would really be. The guy's decent. Lois wouldn't stay with the guy if he was a creep.
Right, exactly.
Again, but making Superman now look like the idiot.
All right, who asked you, Joe? I mean, this entire show has been one giant who asked you.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I covered the action. The action is so boring, it's unforgivable. I briefly touched on the costume. I don't like the costume. It's so funny to me when you look at the costume. When you look at the classic poster of Superman, of Christopher Reeve as Superman, the costume designer gets it right. She understands proportion. She understands. I mean, even the length of the cape is spot on. Where the underpants are, where the boots go, all spot on. Like, she understands why that costume works and how you proportion it to work with a male frame and make it look, it makes sense. I know they wanted to change things up. I know they wanted to make it funky and different and something or other. I thought the costume decisions here were so weird. The skimpy kind of Calvin Klein underpants he's wearing, the weird length of the cape, the decision to make it darker, that dark, ugly maroon red. Again, we've got to make it more realistic, so it's got to be darker. Even the funky chest, the S on the front, the logo. a weird decision to make that like a 3D, like it comes out. And I don't know why that is. It seems weird to me. This is clothing. It should be flat. You know, like why looks like it's plastic and you can pull it off is just weird. Again, weird thing to get hung up on, but I've just never liked that costume. But Lex Luthor, okay? The greatest criminal mind on earth. Also, a real estate tycoon genius. An industry that anybody who knows what they're doing could walk out and make themselves a bunch of money without spending a penny, just moving some papers around the desk and getting people to sign things. Instead, looks up an elderly, rich spinster and shows her pleasures that she's never seen before. He pleasures, and this is the word they use in the film. She says, "You've shown me pleasures that I..." So he's pleasuring a 90-something-year-old woman to score her loot. No. In the words of Lex Luthor, wrong! No, I'm sorry, and that just made me cringe.
And that was the first 5 minutes of the movie.
In the opening scene, I am cringing beyond belief.
Talk about setting your tone. By the way, to add to your Costume Commander comments, I do admit that there were some moments in the movie that I just kind of felt like I was having a sympathy wedgie, and I'd have to kind of pull on my own underwear
right.
every time I would see him in that costume. I mean, I wasn't having a wedgie. It just kind of like felt like, oh my God, that's got to be uncomfortable. Poor Brandon Roth. Okay, I covered the plane crash sequence and how it is so over hyper that I wish I had Ritalin to watch it with.
Yeah.
The other problem I have with this movie, here's the thing. Superman as a Jesus metaphor is a beautiful metaphor. I like that metaphor. Could ya not hit me over the god darn head with it in this movie? I was, oh my God, it was so heavy-handed. It was so heavy that I don't think Superman could have lifted it. That's how heavy it was in this movie. But Joe, what really annoyed me more than anything else was Reporter of Steel. She's in a plane. It's being flown around by a jet. She is being thrown around willy-nilly, here, there, and everywhere, and no problem. And then, later on, when they're trying to get off the boat, as it's sinking, the steel door whacks her in the head, and she's still... That's a crushed skull right there. They purposely show that door is so heavy that only the little kid could even frickin' open it. How is she still alive? That annoyed the ever-living hell out of me the first time I watched it. And when I was rewatching it again, it's like, oh yeah, I forgot about Reporter of Steel.
Yeah. You know, and it's funny, we haven't even really touched on the science of this film. And we've talked before how I think a lot of the Superman movies get derailed because they're trying to sort of get cute with the science of Superman, where now it's like, you always see the sonic boom every time he takes off, and the bullet to the eyeball, which again, it's like
that's why I gave you that title.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't quite. Yeah, like, would that happen? I guess, but again, like, everything now has to. Like, again, once he turned the world backwards in the first one, everyone said, "Well, if he can go that fast, why did he just go that fast in the first place?" So then now, everywhere he goes like this ridiculous speed. He has to land with that big Superman crash land, and now we get bullets to the eyes, and it's like, okay. So when Lois Lane touches him, does that mean he feels like marble? Because anything that touches him now, it would just bounce right off without even making an indent? Can he choose when and where, how that works? I don't know. So yeah, they really get kind of mired in the weird science of this sort of stuff, and it just doesn't work right.
No, sir, it did not. Not in any respect, not in any way, shape, or form. No, this is more part of the problem, more part of the issue with it. Look, stop trying to midichlorians the Force, ladies and gentlemen.
Right.
He's just Superman.
Agreed.
You know, but he doesn't need a cellophane chest. He doesn't need the cellophane stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
He's just Superman. All right, now for the harder question, for your consideration.
What was I gonna say for this? I forgot. Yeah, it ain't much, and honestly, it's not very interesting. I will sort of just give it credit because it loves the Donner series.
I don't know if that's enough, but it's
Yeah,
your choice.
does it pay correct homage? I don't think so. Does it see the Donner series the way I see it? I don't think so. Not saying I have a monopoly on what that film is, but the things that Singer pulls out are just way different than the things that I got out of that movie for sure. But you know what? They used the John Williams score, and even that, I don't really love the score in this film because when they're not ripping off Donner, I kind of felt that the music choices were odd and don't blend or don't mesh with the Richard Donner stuff. I mean the John Williams stuff. So it's a tepid, but I like the moments where the score kicked in. The original John Williams Superman score.
Okay, my man, I will grant you that. I've actually said it enough times through the show. I'm just going to give it up to James Marsden. He was the only character I liked, and I liked that they didn't make his character a complete dick, which would have been the easy way to go with the character of the boyfriend vying for Superman's affection.
Agreed.
You know? So I can't, yeah, I got to give it to him. He is the only thing about this movie I enjoyed. The only thing I took out of it that I felt like, oh, you know, I feel bad for that guy. It's not his fault that everybody else is a bunch of dicks.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but even, you know, it's funny. You're 1,000% correct. He was a good, likable character, and they could have taken that cheap shortcut and made him a creep. But again, I just say to myself, but that is only there because Bryan Singer wants to throw his childhood issues into this movie. And
true.
And again, he wants to make it complex and complicated and not so easy to know the right wrong thing to do. And while I appreciate what he's trying to do, he and I just have different opinions on what makes a good Superman film. I don't think bringing those weird issues into this film, it's not the place for it. It's not what I came here for by a long shot. So make a Superman movie or make an after-school special. Pick one.
Agreed. But you know what? I don't have a lot to give this movie, and he is the only part about it I like. That's why I chose him.
Totally fair.
Well, Joe, we're done.
So long,
and now,
Superman films. What's next?
oh, a fingers crossed moment, Joe. It's a fingers crossed moment.
Oh, right.
Because we have no idea. We have hope. It's the last movie of the year that both you and I are looking forward to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
And after the past couple of weeks of disappointment, I really hope we don't get screwed. Because next week, ladies and gentlemen, it's here. Creed 2.
Totally looking forward to this movie. I'm trying very hard. I've already seen reviews online. I'm avoiding them like the plague. I'm even trying to duck my eyes when I see commercials on TV because I'm seeing, scenes that I haven't seen yet. I'm really trying to stay spoiler free with this as best I can because I really want to enjoy this film, and I got my like you said, fingers crossed.
Yep. I am avoiding it like the plague. I'm barely touching YouTube. I am not even looking at broadcast television. I am off. I am a Netflix man until I see this movie. That is it.
Smart man.
Oh, and by the way, Joe, I'm going to throw this out there for the audience as well. The Ballad of Buster Scruggs on Netflix. It's a Coen Brothers movie. check it out.
Okay. All right. I will definitely give it a shot.
Yes, I've kind of been getting a kick out of it. It's a 2.5 hour movie. It's a long movie, but when you watch it, you'll understand why. And I don't want to give anything else away. Just give it a shot. Don't watch the trailer. Just go right into it, please.
Sounds. I will give it a shot.
All right, cool. But on that note, ladies and gentlemen, so ends that. And hopefully we're coming back with some good news in Creed 2 next week. Everybody, you have a great night. Joe, continue to enjoy Vegas.
I will. Thank you, my friend, and I will see you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube and VidMe for spoiler-free reviews of new releases, as well as in-depth discussions of current and classic cinema. If you enjoy this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page at patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
To Superman 5, The Broken Condom.
Hey, Lois, ready to go to dinner?
Yeah, sure. Just let me grab my purse. Okay, ready.
Ooh, on second thought, I got something I gotta do back on Krypton.
I thought Krypton was destroyed.
I think we should see other people.